In certain travel circles, anything popular is dismissed as touristy, while supposedly traveling like a local is treated as the highest form. I think most of that is ridiculous. I'll always be a proud tourist, and many of the most cliched tourist experiences aren't merely acceptable, they're fantastic, and often the smartest choices for first-time visitors. I'm Roger from priceoftravel.com, and in this video I'm going to show you 7 very touristy things that are far better and much cooler than travel snobs would have you believe. When most of us first start traveling, there seems to be a natural desire to blend in with the locals or at least avoid looking too obviously like a tourist. The moment you climb aboard a hop-on, hop-off bus, you have officially lost that battle, especially when you're sitting out in the open on the top deck. About the only way to look even more touristy would be to ride one while wearing Mickey Mouse ears or an enormous souvenir sombrero. For that reason alone, many experienced travelers I know would never consider taking one. I think they're missing out big time. Not to brag, but I've taken hop-on, hop-off bus tours in at least 50 cities around the world, most recently last year in Mexico City. My usual strategy is to board one on my first full morning in a new city, find a good seat upstairs, and ride the entire loop before deciding where to get off. In 2 or 3 hours, I've seen the outside of most of the city's major attractions, and famous buildings almost always look more impressive from the elevated top deck than they do from the sidewalk. I also understand how the city fits together and which places I want to return to later. Some attractions turn out to be much farther apart than I imagined, while others are close enough to visit together. That basic orientation can make the rest of my stay far more efficient. I prefer live commentary when it's available because a good guide can be funny, react to what's happening around the bus, and answer questions. But the recorded commentary is usually interesting as well and often available in several languages. Prices can also vary enormously, and in congested cities the tour can spend too much time sitting still, so it's worth reading recent reviews before buying a ticket. My favorite is still the Paris tour, and I'll happily ride it again the next time I'm there. I may look like the most obvious tourist in France, but I'll also have one of the best moving views in the city. Closely related to hop-on, hop-off buses are city attraction passes, although I can only recommend these to travelers who enjoy researching a destination, not merely before arriving, but before buying the pass. The best known examples include the London Pass, Paris Pass, and New York Pass, but similar products are available in most large tourist cities. Some are excellent values and others are difficult to justify, so you really have to study what each one includes. I used to update dozens of extensive attraction pass reviews every year on priceoftravel.com, and I answered hundreds of reader questions about them. I was also fortunate enough to receive many passes for free when my website was an affiliate partner, so I became very familiar with both their benefits and their less obvious drawbacks. The basic premise is that you pay what initially looks like a fairly large price, then receive admission to a long list of famous and not so famous attractions during a set number of days. The hop-on, hop-off bus we just discussed is often included, along with museums, boat cruises, walking tours, and many of the city's major paid attractions. The short version is that these passes work best for enthusiastic planners who are willing to start early every morning. If that describes you, a good pass can save substantial money and sometimes save time at ticket counters. The other major benefit is that you can add 1 or 2 attractions you would never pay for separately. Since admission is already included, you can stop in, look around for 30 minutes, and leave without worrying about getting your money's worth. And lest anyone think I'm merely a shill for big tourism, observation decks are one famous tourist experience I usually find underwhelming and wildly overpriced. But when 1 or more are included with the pass, I'm happy to go up for half an hour, especially after dark, when most other attractions have closed for the day. If you prefer sleeping late and rarely leave the hotel before 11 in the morning, you'll probably struggle to receive enough value. But if the challenge of doing $500 worth of activities with a $249 pass sounds entertaining, you may absolutely love them. Sales and promotional codes are also extremely common, and joining the company's email list will often unlock another small discount. Never judge the value using the headline price alone, and never buy a pass until you've made at least a rough itinerary. Next up might be the most surprising entry in this video: wax museums, and specifically Madame Tussauds. They currently operate in 20 locations around the world, including the original attraction in London. Before I visited one, I assumed it was probably the dumbest tourist attraction that wasn't a roadside mystery spot or some other obvious ripoff. Who would pay around $40 to wander through galleries filled with wax versions of celebrities, historical figures, and famous athletes? Certainly not me, or so I thought. Thanks to the attraction passes I just discussed, I've now visited about 5 Madame Tussauds locations at no additional cost, and they blow me away every time. I imagine many people watching this have never seriously considered going inside, and if that includes you, it's difficult to describe just how realistic these figures look, even when you're standing only a few inches away. These aren't dusty galleries filled with vaguely recognizable mannequins. The figures are usually presented in elaborate sets where you can walk right up to them, pose for photos, and examine details that somehow remain convincing from every angle. There have even been several famous pranks in which real celebrities posed as their own wax figures and suddenly moved to surprise visitors. With that in mind, I can never completely relax because I'm half expecting one of them to blink and reveal that I've wandered into a prank video myself. At full price, I still wouldn't necessarily prioritize Madame Tussauds over the major sites in a city, but if admission is included with an attraction pass or you can find a substantial discount, I can genuinely recommend giving it a chance. You may walk in expecting one of the dumbest attractions you've ever visited, as I did, and leave an hour later completely amazed. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a like. It helps YouTube recommend it to more people and lets me know there's an audience for unusual travel topics like this one. Next up are short sightseeing cruises. These are available in cities all over the world and often seem like the aquatic equivalent of a hop-on hop-off bus tour, except that on most of them, once you're aboard, you're staying aboard. There are exceptions, including some of the boats running up and down the Thames in London. Fortunately, they usually last less than a 3-hour tour. Once again, nothing could feel more touristy than slowly boarding an aging sightseeing boat, often surrounded by families with young children and older travelers with mobility limitations. Of course, the fact that these cruises work so well for both of those groups is another point in their favor. I've taken a whole bunch of them around the world, and they are also frequently included with attraction passes. What you may not appreciate until you start taking these cruises is how many famous cities were built around their rivers and harbors. Many of their grandest buildings and most impressive skylines were meant to be seen from the water, so the best unobstructed view, and often the best photo, is from the deck of a boat slowly passing by. Some of my favorites are the Circle Line cruises in New York. When I lived there, I would regularly take visiting friends on one, and they were always impressed. Another favorite that I mention frequently is the 1-hour Seine cruise departing from near the Eiffel Tower, ideally just before sunset. As daylight fades, the bridges and buildings begin lighting up around you, and Paris somehow looks even better from the river. You can usually buy a drink or a snack on board, and these cruises can be a wonderfully relaxing way to see a city from a completely different perspective after a long day of walking. They might be unapologetically touristy, but they're scenic, comfortable, and efficient, and if one is included with an attraction pass, it is almost always time very well spent. Next up are the tips-based, so-called free walking tours now available in hundreds of cities around the world. Unlike the other entries on this list, free walking tours don't necessarily have a reputation for being hopelessly touristy, but when you're part of a large group following a guide holding up a colorful umbrella for 2 or 3 hours, no one is going to confuse you for a local. Again, not to brag, but I've taken many dozens of these tours around the world, and I haven't regretted a single one. On one rainy afternoon in Hong Kong, I was actually the only person who showed up, so I essentially received a private walking tour for the price of whatever tip I chose to leave. That remains one of the more memorable tours I've taken. The modern free walking tour concept began in Berlin in 2003 and quickly spread across Europe and eventually around the world. You usually meet beside a famous landmark at a designated time. Some cities might offer only one tour each day, while the most popular destinations can have hourly departures. A local guide gathers the group and leads everyone past the most important sites within walking distance, usually providing witty and entertaining commentary at each stop. Since I was usually traveling alone, I would chat with the guide while walking between sites. Those conversations frequently produced amazingly useful advice about neighborhoods to explore, restaurants to try, and places that weren't part of the standard tour. At the end, the guide explains again that there was no admission price and asks everyone to tip what they thought the tour was worth and could afford. I would typically give the equivalent of around $10 at the time, while younger backpackers might give less, and the guides always seemed genuinely grateful. As long as you can comfortably walk for a couple of hours and don't mind being identified as an obvious tourist from several blocks away, I can't recommend free walking tours highly enough. Next up is scenic public transportation. This one isn't always overwhelmingly touristy, but in the right city it can provide one of the best sightseeing experiences and values available. Most urban public transportation is far from scenic and can be confusing for visitors, but certain cities have famous routes that are absolutely worth seeking out. One favorite is New York's free Staten Island Ferry. The crossing takes about 25 minutes each way and provides outstanding views of New York Harbor, including a surprisingly close look at the Statue of Liberty. Despite what those insurance commercials suggest, the statue looks quite small from most places on land, so a boat is the best way to get a good photo. Another great example is Lisbon's Tram 28, which for the price of a normal local fare, trundles past many of the city's most famous sites in a suspiciously efficient order. Then there's Hong Kong's Star Ferry. A standard crossing still costs less than $1 and provides spectacular views of one of the world's most photogenic harbors. The commuter ferries crossing the Bosphorus in Istanbul offer a similarly inexpensive journey with unforgettable views between Europe and Asia. There are too many other examples to list here, but the larger point is that public transportation doesn't always have to be merely a way of getting somewhere. Sometimes the journey itself is one of the city's best attractions. Some of these routes can be crowded and are occasionally dismissed as options for cheap or naive tourists. I proudly qualify on at least one of those counts because I swear by all four of these and many more. And finally, organized day tours, usually by bus. There are some amazing ones available around the world, along with others that should be avoided whenever possible. The ones to avoid are especially common around major resort areas and cruise ports. They're often suspiciously cheap because a large portion of the day can be devoted to shopping stops disguised as craft demonstrations or cultural experiences. The guide or tour company receives a commission from whatever the passengers buy, so you can spend nearly as much time steered through the shops as seeing the place you came to visit. The best organized tours usually have a clear theme and can initially seem expensive, partly because they don't rely on shopping commissions to make money. My favorite was probably the Sound of Music bus tour from Salzburg, Austria. It takes passengers into the surrounding countryside to visit the movie's indescribably scenic filming locations, while encouraging everyone to sing along with the famous songs between stops. Even the people on my tour who had never seen the movie appeared to be having a wonderful time. I've taken dozens of other organized day tours, including a memorable visit to Auschwitz-Birkenau from Krakow. In many cases, a tour provides transportation to several widely separated places, admission arrangements, and useful context that would be difficult or time-consuming to organize independently. Climbing on and off a large tour bus every hour can feel incredibly touristy and about as far from traveling like a local as it's possible to get, but sometimes it is easily the most practical and most enjoyable way to see several remarkable places in one day. I'll continue taking the good ones, no matter what the travel snobs have to say about it. So those were 7 very touristy things that many experienced travelers will tell you to avoid, but that might end up becoming highlights of your next trip. People used to spend a surprising amount of time debating whether they were travelers or tourists. As far as I'm concerned, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a tourist, as long as you're enjoying yourself. I'd love to hear in the comments which supposedly touristy experience you will happily defend. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more travel videos from a slightly different perspective. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.